I'd like to walk you through what it actually takes to be consistently profitable. Not so much from hard work and grinding and all that stuff and trying to hammer that home, although that can be part of it, as I'm sure you're well aware. More, what does the path look like? What does each step look like? From total beginner, never had any introduction to the markets or exposure to markets, right through to consistently profitable. What does that look like? And I'm going to identify the key pitfall where like 95% of traders give up and quit. Exactly why, and I'll show you how to get past that as well. So, the first stage, probably most people are familiar with this. You know nothing about markets, so you start learning. You're looking at things like technical analysis. You're looking at just the names of different things, instruments, different stocks or forex or whatever it is that you're looking at. You'd be looking for a broker. What broker should I use? What charting software should I use? Things like that. You're getting used to the terminology, getting used to how the markets work. So that's phase one. The second phase is where you're going out and actively looking for strategies. Now you're getting excited because a lot of these strategies that you find, likely on YouTube here, a lot of them look like something that you could trade very easily, right? The methodology is simple. It's very clear. You get in here, you put your stop here, and you get out here. It's all very clear and straightforward, and it's driven home to you that if you just take your profits and take your stop losses, this will all work out. So you get into it and you're all excited, and it kind of doesn't work out that simply. And so then you find something else, a different strategy, and then you learn some more things, and you keep bringing maybe you switch to futures or options, and you're kind of, maybe skipping around, but what you're really doing is you're trying to find a solution. What's going to work? And sometimes people are a bit overexcited too, and they can actually skip around a little bit. But this is the pitfall. People get stuck here, right? They don't know how to actually move to the next step. They don't even know what the next step is. And I know this because I was there and now I recognize it in like 95% of the traders out there who get stuck here and frustrated and give up. And some of them really give it a good run. They'll keep going for 2, 3 years, trying really hard to figure it out. But they get stuck and they end up giving up. Here's what the next step is. And I'm not making this up. I learned this by doing my own research on what the next step typically is for professionals. How does a hedge fund do this? They have way better success rate with trading and training traders than we as retail traders do on our own. So, what are they doing differently? Here's what they're doing differently. They're actually requiring their traders to track strategies and, you know, well, we use spreadsheets because it's easy and it's cheap and it's effective. So, whatever software they have, and obviously it's different from bank to bank and hedge fund to hedge fund, but it all looks the same. They have to record their trades, they have to review them, they have analytics. How are they performing? How is the trade performing, right? And so they're constantly doing this review and trying to get better as traders and trying to make the strategy better, if that makes sense, right? So then the next step is just getting experience. Once they've kind of dialed in their strategy and they have it so it's working fairly well, and they know when it's a good time to trade it and when it's not a good time to trade that strategy, um, it's just experience. It's just experiencing the strategy in different market conditions, understanding how the market works. So, those are the four really basic high level steps of what it takes to become consistently profitable. So the first two steps are pretty common to people. You're just going to get familiar with the markets, learn the terminology, get a broker, things like that, learn some technical analysis. But here's what I'd like you to do when you're at that level. At that level, people are getting kind of like chomping at the bit, so to speak. They really want to get an account funded and they want to start growing their account. That's not going to work. That never works. All right. Some traders may have a little bit of success with it for a time, but that success fades. It never works. So at this stage, here's what you need to do. You need to do a little bit of trading psychology, which actually is performance psychology, where you're just basically doing the work to believe that you can actually achieve this goal of being consistently profitable. Doing the work to believe that it's not a bad thing to make money, especially easily. It's not a bad thing to do that. Here's the other thing I want you to do. I want you to go on like the NASDAQ 100, the QQQ, and the SPY, and I want you to start just practicing technical analysis. Just go back in the charts, draw in the support and resistance lines, draw in the trend lines, identify the breaks of the trends, the breakouts, past the previous resistance line. Identify those things. And the reason I want you to do that is because you're going to see support and resistance and trends actually working the way that they're meant to work. If you get into some really complex or intense strategy, you're not going to see that because those strategies often are quite choppy. They're moving all over the place. You're not going to get that. So I would do that with the Mag 7. I would just get a good it's not about understanding intellectually. It's about experiencing and having your emotional side be able to be calm with the idea that this can work. Trend lines can work. Support and resistance can work most of the time, which is the way it works. Step two. So then when you move on to step two, when you're paper trading and you start finding some of those more aggressive strategies, then you will have seen how support and resistance works. And it'll be a little more familiar because people often ask, they get into these strategies, and it's very common for them to ask, I don't know if I'm doing support and resistance right. Well, yeah, because those strategies often involve a little more intense names, and those names, because they're moving, seem pretty choppy, and it's hard for you to find the support and resistance line. So just get some practice first, and then when you move to step two, it's going to be a lot easier. Now, here's how to not get stuck here. Start step three as soon as you have a strategy dialed in that you like and you can identify the criteria clearly. Get it into a spreadsheet, start paper trading it, start recording those paper trades. That's the best way to start making real progress and protecting yourself from getting stuck in that grindy thing where you're moving from one strategy to another, trying to find something that works. So, step four is reviewing your trades, and you want to do this manually. If you're trying to be a discretionary trader, you have to do this whole process manually. Why am I making you do it the seemingly hard way? Because you're trying to train your intuition. If your intuition doesn't have the organized information that you've experienced and saw yourself multiple times and seen it grouped together so that you can see on like 8 or 10 or 20 trades that something specific seems to be working most of the time, then you're never going to train your intuition if you don't see that. You have to experience it yourself. As you do that and just keep doing this process of tracking your trades, at some point you'll probably switch to real money when it makes sense and you can see that you have edge. But you still want to keep tracking those trades because you'll just keep getting better and better and better as a discretionary trader because you're training that discretionary side now, right? So the last step is experience. You need to just keep doing that. You need to get experience. You need to see your strategy work in different market cycles. Can you learn to trade without doing this? I mean, anything's possible, right? There are traders who have not done this process and have learned to trade. But if you do some research, and I have been doing my research, you find that these people consistently say that it took them 10, 11, 12 years to learn to trade. So here's the main point. This is the takeaway point. What I just told you, this process is the shortcut. This is the shortcut that helps you to get to consistently profitable. Another added benefit is it's helpful for your trading psychology because A, you know and can see that there is a process that you can trust that's going to get you to your goals. And the second part of it is that as you keep filling out this spreadsheet and keep making little tweaks and changes to your strategy, you will see it in the numbers. You'll track things like win rate and average gains and stuff like that. You'll see that your strategy is improving as you keep making these tweaks. And of course, if you do a tweak and it doesn't improve, then you know that too, right? Okay, so this is the basic framework, the basic path taken from how pro traders do it, develop themselves, and develop trading strategies, and adapted for retail traders. So it's realistic and cheap enough and doable. It is still very effective, very effective. If you want to see how effective, you can click on this playlist where I do an entire series showing you exactly the framework, right from having a raw idea right through to building edge and having success. And if you want to know more information on how you can get started right away, then click on this video.